We have to approach everything in a very empathetic way. We reassure people that we deal with these types of properties all the time. It's probably nothing we've never seen before, and that, our job is just to help them get from point A to point B.
Financial independence,
freedom,
Financial picture.
Independent financially.
Financial future.
Financial freedom and wealth.
Financial independence.
Get your fill. Financial independence and long life. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We have got with us today Lindsay Sharma. She is a superstar real estate investor. She's going to inspire you, excite you. She's the inspiring, I double dipped there. She's the inspiring founder of Lindsay Sharma Property Buyers. She's a wife, a mother of three, a bookworm, and a true crime podcast enthusiast. But she's not just another real estate entrepreneur. She's a relationship builder. She's a problem solver, which I think are two of the things that women do better than men in real estate investing. She has disrupted the traditional real estate investing model by prioritizing trust, education, and authenticity over mere profits. Again, that's a total advantage that women bring to the table, in my opinion. Not only does she bring a refreshing perspective to the industry, but she also gives back to the community with 5% of her company's profits supporting women and children first. Thanks for joining us, Lindsay.
Thank you for having me, Christine. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, not as excited as I am. So the first thing I want to hear, because I think this is what a lot of people want to know when they first hear, like, oh, here's a woman who's knocking them out of the park in real estate investing, is how did you first get started? Like, what was is this something you always wanted to do? Like, bring us right back to day one.
Yeah, so I love that question. But I grew up in the Midwest in Northwest Ohio. My hometown is Toledo, and I was fortunate enough to go to college. Neither of my parents went to college. They're very blue collar. And, we lived a pretty comfortable middle class life. I graduated college in 2007. And as we know, the financial crisis happened in 2008. So I graduated with my fresh degree in hand into a terrible, terrible economy. I had my degree was in graphic design, and I had a really hard time getting a job, any job, let alone something that pertained to the education I just spent 4 years working on. And my first job was actually for Penske truck leasing. I would rent out trucks all day. And I did that for a couple of years. And I basically spent the next decade just job hopping. And I was pretty underpaid during that time. I started freelancing as a graphic designer just to get some experience. And that was more of my passion. I loved it. And then I eventually did get into the field. I started working as a designer professionally. And then I eventually started my own business as a designer. I did that for a few years. And that was a big struggle for me. I didn't know anything about running a business. I didn't know anything about systems, processes. I didn't know anything about working with a mentor. I basically just held a job for myself, charged by the hour. And I did okay, but it was just a really big learning experience for me. And then I actually ended up going back to kind of getting a corporate job, 9 to 5 in design, just because I wanted to I was a little burnout. My finances weren't really where I wanted them to be. And I just wanted to kind of give myself a break. So I went back to work and did that for a few years. And kind of while I was having my graphic design business and I was struggling, I was doing a lot of research and reading on personal finance, wealth building. I was basically asking the question, how do people do this? How do people make money? How do people live, abundantly, live the lifestyle they want? And I kind of stumbled upon real estate investing. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which many investors will tell you was the book that got them started. It's very cliche by now, but it's true. It was a paradigm shift for me. And so I just kind of spent the next couple of years just reading, spending time on Bigger Pockets, just working on my education. And I got to the point where I was pretty much done with graphic design. I was like, I don't really want to be in this industry anymore. I really want to get started on real estate investing, but I was scared. I was single at the time. I really didn't have any money. I just didn't know how to get started. So I thought, well, why don't I find a job working in this field, working for somebody else, so that I can learn the business, learn the everyday ins and outs, and just see where that takes me. So that's exactly what I did. I was fortunate enough when I started looking on Indeed for jobs, and I found a real estate investor in my market who was hiring. He was hiring an executive assistant, and I happened to get the job, which I had no executive assistant experience, but I somehow sold myself to him, and I worked for him for about 3 years. He mentored me a lot. He was very generous with his time, information. And I was very clear too when I took that job that, hey, I do want to get into real estate investing. That's my long-term goal. And he helped me a lot. I actually bought my first investment property while I was working with him. And then, after working in his business for 3 years, I was actually pregnant with my third child. And I was kind of at the point where it's like, after maternity leave, do I want to continue working for this company, or am I ready to go out on my own? And the answer was, I'm ready to go out on my own. So I started my own real estate investing business, been in business for a little over a year now, as a full-time real estate investor.
Cool. And that, I think you set the stage for yourself, right? You said you knew what you wanted to do, but you're like, I'm not just going to rush off there and say, "Hi, I'm a real estate investor. Do you want to buy, can I buy your stuff?" Right? You said, what are the secrets? What are the things? What are some of the things? What was the first thing that you learned when you started working for that investor that surprised you? Do you remember?
Yeah, so I thought that real estate investing was just pretty much what you see on HGTV. Excuse me. You buy a house, do some repairs, sell it for a profit. That's all I knew about real estate investing. And when I started working, his name is Justin. When I started working for him in his company, I learned there's so many more strategies and avenues that fall under that umbrella of real estate investing that I just had no clue about.
Yeah, that's what a lot of it's either fix and flip or buy and hold. Like those are the only two options. But in fact, right, there are a
Hmm.
gazillion options. So now talk us through a little bit about how your model works today. Is this the same as what Justin was using?
Yeah, so my business is pretty similar to Justin's. Primarily, what my business does right now is called wholesaling. What we do is we send out marketing or direct mail directly to sellers, and we target what are called distressed properties. So usually these are properties that need repairs, or it could be a distressing financial situation like pre-foreclosure, tax delinquency, things of that nature. So we're very targeted about who we're going after and who we can help. And those people call us, and what we do is we negotiate a price with them. We get the property under contract, and we actually sell our rights to that contract to an end buyer. The end buyer is usually a fix and flipper or a landlord. And sometimes it might actually be an individual who's going to live in the property, and they're going to do some sweat equity to make it the way they want. But we always sell these properties at a great discount, and that's called wholesaling. So that's primarily what I do, but I also have a buy and hold portfolio. My portfolio has owner finance notes, and also I have rental properties. When I was working for Justin, he was a big note investor. His portfolio is mostly notes. That's what he's mostly doing now, buying and selling notes. But he did also do some wholesaling alongside it, and I kind of learned all about that from working for him.
Excellent. Yeah, what a great advantage. You didn't have to muddle through and because it's true, right? People watch, oh, HGTV, great. I'm going to get this place in a half an hour. It's going to be fixed up and ready to go, right? And I mean, it's just there's so much more to it. How do you
Absolutely.
decide that you're going to hold on to a property that you've come across? What are some of your criteria?
Yes. So I'm really looking. So my primary market right now is Central Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. And I chose that market because that's where I learned. I lived there for 10 years. Um, and so I got really familiar with that market, and I'm still there. It's a great market. Even though I moved and I live in Central Florida now. So some of the things I look for is it's a lot of number crunching. Is the cash flow going to work? Is the property going to appreciate? What's the condition of the property? What kind of repairs need to be made to it? Um, what are the rents like in this area? Are the rents strong enough that it's going to make sense financially? Um, those are the main things I'm looking at. There's all kinds of calculators and formulas and things like that. I don't want to bore the listeners with that, but uh, those are some of the things I'm looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you found it challenging to be managing these projects or dealing with these projects from afar, right? You're not going to be on boots on the ground doing this kind of stuff for the most part, I'm assuming.
Yes. So there are advantages and disadvantages to being an investor in a market in which you don't live. But it absolutely can be done. Some challenges I've run into. So I do have a team. I have a full-time salesperson who lives in Little Rock. He goes to the properties, he looks at them, takes pictures, all of that stuff, gets them under contract. And then my title company is there. I have attorneys there. So I do have a team on the ground in Little Rock. But some challenges I have run into are that I am not physically walking these properties. I'm not seeing them with my eyes. When I have contractors doing work, I recently actually just had a situation where the contractor completely tried to take advantage of me because he knew I wasn't going to go step foot on the property. And I had to really uh, nip that in the bud, I guess. And I ceased working with him. So there's definitely challenges. But a lot of people will tell you, when you're running a business, I am the CEO or owner of the business, so I really shouldn't be the one walking through these properties anyways, because that's not the best use of my time. So even if I did live in that market, I still should not be going to those properties, and I should be having other people do it for me. Um, so so I guess that's the real challenge there. I think in real estate, the most important thing is surrounding yourself with people you trust
Yeah.
and people who do quality work, and who are aligned with your core values. And I think that matters so much more than whether you live in the market you're investing in or not. It's really all about people.
Do you think it's different being a woman in this industry, in the real estate industry?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, only 35% of real estate investors are women. So it's still a male dominated field, which we see a lot with a lot of these, um, maybe high paying professional areas, finance, real estate, things of that nature. So I think for me, that's just been a challenge. It's kind of felt like the good old boys club. When I talk to a lot of the buyers, most of the buyers that are buying properties from me are seasoned investors, they're men. A lot of them have stay-at-home wives or, a lot of support with their families. And another challenge I found is that, in real estate, it does require a lot of education. I'm constantly taking courses. I have a coach I'm working with. There's so much to learn. And all of the coaches and teachers, most of them are men, white men. And the way that they're talking to me, it's like that may work for you, but it doesn't feel authentic to me. This is not how I would approach it. So I found that very challenging, as well as, negotiating super important. And a lot of the negotiation tactics that I've been taught, I just don't feel comfortable to me either. So but I would say an advantage to being a woman in this area is that I feel like women are more intuitive when it comes to relationship building, when it comes to listening, understanding people's problems, solving problems, as you mentioned, kind of at the top of the show. Um, so I think that can really be an advantage. And then sometimes I almost feel like people trust women more than they trust men because a lot of times, I'm talking to either sellers or buyers who've never met me. I don't have an office, in their backyard that they can come visit me. And so they have to trust the person they're talking over the phone to. And I've had people say, like, how do I know this isn't a scam
Yeah.
and this and that? And I have to reassure them. So yeah.
Well, and there's the nuances of working with distressed property, right? Can you just talk us through some of the scenarios where people would be coming to you because their house just isn't quite the right fit for the typical real estate market?
Yes. So the sellers and homeowners that we're working with, a lot of times they may be in a situation where listing it on the market with a real estate agent probably won't be the right fit for them. And a lot of times the reasons for that is financial. The house probably needs a lot of repairs. Maybe it needs a new roof. Um, maybe it needs a lot of cosmetic repairs, sometimes structural repairs, and that could be 20, 30, 40, $50,000. And if you're going to list it on the market, a lot of times you need to make those repairs ahead of time. A lot of realtors won't work with people who have distressed properties. Um, and then banks will not lend on homes like that as well, that the repairs have not been done. So it really creates, um, it can create huge issues. And so the sellers, a lot of times, they don't really know where to turn. And that's where a company like ours can come in and help them. And, some of the scenarios we come across are a lot of inherited properties. Maybe, the parents, they gave the property to the children. The adult children maybe live in 3 different states. They don't even live where the property is. And it's full of stuff. All this, they don't want to clean out the stuff. They don't really know what repairs need to be made, but they know it's not, market ready to list. And so they'll talk to us. We'll come in. We'll buy we buy the property as it is. They don't have to clean anything. They don't have to do anything. But we do buy it under market value for the convenience. They're trading convenience for money, basically. So that we can quickly get the property off their hands and they really don't have to deal with it. A lot of these people, these properties have become a headache for them as opposed to, an asset.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes the people who are living there, right, there are special situations, which I think again is where a woman's uh, caring, natural nurturing and caring can come in, right? You got people who they have to relocate, they're older now, they can't live alone anymore, or they can't live
Mhm.
independently. Do you get involved in any of those sort of negotiations or, helping the families?
Yeah. So it can be really, really tough in this industry because we do come across a lot of families facing hardships, facing grief. Um, we just looked at a property the other day where it was it's a hoarder house. I mean, it's packed, just packed full of stuff.
Yeah.
The house has been sitting there for 10 years. The family has not sold it yet, and they just have been paying the taxes and just dealing with it. And now they're just like, we're done. We gotta get rid of it.
Yeah.
But it's in pretty bad condition, and there's a lot of shame involved with that. So
Yeah.
we have to approach everything in a very empathetic way. We reassure people that we deal with these types of properties all the time. It's probably nothing we've never seen before, and that our job is just to help them get from point A to point B. And so I think a lot of people appreciate that. And it can be really difficult sometimes getting to the root of the problem or really finding out what's going on in the situation, because it takes several phone calls or appointments or meetings to really build that trust with the seller and for them to open up and tell you what's really going on. Because if we don't really understand the severity of the situation, we can't best help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, again, I think it helps. I mean, do you feel at this point, is the majority of your business still coming from your mailers, or do you also have some word of mouth referrals?
Yeah, we do have word of mouth. And yeah, sometimes we buy houses from people who have more than one home, and they definitely come back to us and to help them with that. And besides sort of individuals, we do buy homes from a lot of landlords that are maybe getting older, retiring, or maybe they just have a handful of properties and they've never really systemized anything, and it's just not it's too overwhelming for them. So we help with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to a friend about this yesterday. It's like it's easier to own 10 properties than it is to own three because once you get a certain amount, you have a team, everything happens just by itself. But when you just have a couple, you're not the top of the plumber's list. You're not, necessarily going to be able to get everything done easily. And oftentimes you're doing a lot of things yourself. So it can be a
Absolutely.
lot. Absolutely.
Yes. Mhm.
So what have you found to be your favorite part of this career of this entrepreneurial endeavor?
I would say the learning. I'm just one of those people that just loves to learn. I have a thirst for knowledge. I have a thirst for self improvement and just always growing. And so, real estate and being an entrepreneur, I think, really provides that atmosphere. And then the second thing would just be the people I've met on this journey, whether it's the people I work with in my business, other investors, other entrepreneurs, going on podcasts like this. It's just so fulfilling to talk to other people who are entrepreneurs, because sometimes it can feel isolating, especially if you don't have a lot of people in your close circle who are entrepreneurs. They don't necessarily understand some of the struggles that you go through. Um, so I think those are the two most rewarding things for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell us about Women and Children First.
Yes. So Women and Children First is it's a shelter for women who are survivors of domestic abuse. And I remember reading a book that was kind of a critique of Amazon, and it was written by a journalist, and it really opened my eyes to the way that mega corporations these days are just neglecting the communities they exist in. So, back in the manufacturing era, at least the steel mills, when they were in a community, they were also paying taxes that would go to the local schools. They were sometimes providing housing for employees. They were just investing more in the community than what we see today. Now we have companies like Amazon setting up warehouses, and they are, not paying any taxes that go to that local community. The local community is not benefiting. So for me as a business owner, I really want to make sure that part of our profits were going right back into the community. And, my business is run in Little Rock. So I wanted to support an organization that's in that community, even though I live in Florida. So that's what I decided to do. I just really care about women's issues, women's rights, and the empowerment of women. And so that's why I chose that organization.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there anything particular, I'm wondering about the real estate market in the areas in Little Rock area where you're investing. Is that one of the appeals why you want to stay in that area?
Um, so Little Rock is what we call a flat market, meaning when there's booms, when the market cycle goes up and down, it doesn't experience extreme swings. So that can be kind of a nice thing about that market. And also the housing prices, yes, they've inflated over the past 5 years, but they're still quite affordable compared to a lot of markets.
Mhm.
And that can make, owning rental properties there it can really just make sense number wise, because you can buy a property for less than $100,000, and then the rents might be $1,500. So it just makes a lot of sense numbers wise. So
Yeah, absolutely. You can buy a garage parking space here for about 90,000.
yes, yes, yeah.
So yeah, and nobody's living there. Nobody's going to pay you $1,500 a month to live there. That's for sure.
Hmm.
Do you have thoughts of expanding into other markets? I mean, that would be for me, like I somewhat like the hunt, like I kind of like exploring new areas and figuring out what how the
Yeah.
numbers work in that particular place. Is that any part of anything that you're planning to do or doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually last year we tested Toledo, Ohio, which is my hometown, because I thought I'm very familiar with the neighborhoods. It shouldn't be that hard to jump into that market. But what we found out is that because it's a depressed area, the houses are very inexpensive. There's a ton of distressed properties, but the margins were so thin because of the low housing price that it was just really hard for us to make the numbers work in a lot of these instances. And then I also found out that the code the code department was very, very strict and difficult to work with. So like if we got a property that had some code violations or code things that needed to be done, it was very, very difficult to um, for like the buyer to make those changes and get it up to code, all of that sort of stuff. As well as the tax laws are a little different there. If their state or an area where if someone's delinquent on their taxes, it actually goes to housing court, and there could be criminal punishment. And so
Oh,
that
wow.
opened up a lot of legal issues that made it really hard for us to buy some of these properties.
Yeah.
Um, So it just didn't really work out well for us. But to answer your question, I would like to expand in some other markets in the future, but it definitely takes time. I've only been in business for a year. So I was taught by my coach and mentor that you need to get really, really good at one market before you're ready to go into another. And you have to be ready because you really have to set up all of your systems, your team, all of that stuff in your new market. You have to build your buyers list there, and you have to learn the laws too, because laws can be different by county, by state, by city. So
Yeah, I know it's well, and it's interesting because what you were saying about Toledo, it's you've got a municipality there that is making the, sort of keeping the housing prices depressed because they're not allowing people to come in and to make it worth, they're making it difficult for people to fix up their homes. They're making it difficult for, neighborhoods to improve themselves because it's just, yeah. And I wonder if they even
yeah,
realize it.
yeah, and it was very disheartening because like we had a property under contract, we had a buyer selected. She really wanted the home, and because of the code violations, she had to present her plan to the city of what, excuse me, of the repair she was going to make, and they had to approve it, and they just weren't approving it. They were just kind of locking her in bureaucratic limbo, and she was just like, I have to cancel the deal. I have to move quicker than this. And so it's like, the seller was kind of just stuck with the house. um and a vacant house is just going to sit there, which is going to impact the community. It's going to bring crime. It's just a bad scenario for everyone involved. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. It's really a shame. If you work for a municipality, listen to what's happening here because they're locking themselves into a place where the neighborhood prices are just going to continue to go down. Houses aren't going to get fixed up. They're going to become vacant. They're going to get boarded up. Like you say, there'll be crime. There'll be vandalism. It's not a pretty picture. Yeah.
yeah, and I actually also found out too, that Toledo has a huge problem with arson. With these vacant houses, people are just burning them down. Like I have
Oh,
talked to so many people who've had their house burned down, and it's bad.
yeah, that's a shame. But then then they
Hmm.
can get the insurance money. I mean, and then pretty
Yeah,
soon it'll be like Florida and you won't be able to get insurance.
that yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Um, what has been the most sort of challenging piece of this for you? I mean, going off on your own, getting it set up. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of like nail biting moments and what's
Yes.
what would you I guess what would advice would you kind of give to people who are thinking about doing this and letting those doubts and fears sort of stand in their way?
Yeah. So, one of the major mistakes I made is that I worked for someone for 3 years and I learned so much, and I thought, hey, I have the blueprint for this business. So I started my business and I ramped up very quickly, and I ramped up too quickly. So I was spending too much on marketing. I didn't have the right team in place. And I also bought too many properties for my buy and hold portfolio too quickly.
Hmm.
And I had some big issues come up on several of these properties at once, which really killed my cash flow. And I ended up losing money for that year. It was very stressful because I'm like robbing Peter to pay Paul, and your portfolio is supposed to be this passive income, right? And it just wasn't working out that way. And secondly, I think when you know building a portfolio or investing in real estate is a very long-term strategy, and you have to have money to support your portfolio. So I wouldn't recommend anyone just quitting their job and saying, I'm going to be a full-time real estate investor, because a lot of times you still need that money to pay your bills. And that's where my wholesaling business comes into place. That's just generating cash to cover, help contribute to my home, pay myself a salary, all of that stuff. But like I said, when problems come up with my portfolio, I still need money, to maybe do repairs. For example, I had a tree fall on one of my rentals, and poked a hole. The tree limb went all the way through the roof, poked a hole into the interior of the house. And I had only owned this home for a couple of months. So I didn't have this big reserve of repair money. So I had to pull that money, out of my business. So I think that's really important is number one, just don't scale too quickly. Take your time. Make sure you have money. If you're going to own rental properties, make sure you have some cash reserves and you're prepared for big things to happen because that's one of the risks you take. Um, so I think those are pretty important things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm curious about just the structure that in the way that you're holding your various buy and hold properties. Is it like one like LLC or whatever that's holding all of them? Are you having individual companies for each one? What have you found to be the best way to take care of that piece of it?
Sure. So right now I have one LLC for my rental holdings. I do have some notes and those are under a different LLC. And that's the same LLC as my wholesaling business, but my CPA recommended a different, so you can have the same LLC for your rentals. But there's a special term for it. I think it's called a series LLC where you can create like little divisions underneath that same LLC for your different properties. So that's how we have it structured.
Mhm.
But sometimes I do different fees for each property. I think it's just a matter of working with your CPA, getting their advice, and kind of figuring out the best structure.
Absolutely. This is a silly question, but is your CPA in Florida or or in Little Rock?
He's actually in Texas, and he was recommend. I have a what's called a fractional CFO, so
Mhm.
I work with somebody who helps me look at all the financials of my business, understand the financials, and make decisions based on that. And he actually worked with me on implementing the profit first system, um, and so he's the one that recommended my CPA and my bookkeeper.
Cool. It's Yeah, I just was thinking about is local knowledge important? You know what I mean? When it comes to that piece of it. And obviously we're saying no.
I think it just kind of depends. Yes, there are people who maybe you would want to the local market that really where your business exists. But it does get a little complicated for us because yes, we're living in a different state that the business is in, and then my husband's a W-2 employee, but so far so good.
That's why the accountants make the big bucks. They can take care of all
Exactly.
that stuff. Here's a whole bunch
Yes,
of paper. You fix it up and do whatever you need to do.
exactly, exactly.
But it's nice having that W-2 because even you were saying before, like, don't quit your job because it helps you to get a loan, right? If you're going to get started real estate investing and you're going to buy your own property, it's banks don't love self-employed people. Let's face it. I mean,
Yes, you're right about that. It does help because banks do want to see that you have income and money in savings and all.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Lindsay, our morning is slipping away here. And I don't want to, I know you have a gazillion things to do, but what is there one question that you wish I would have asked you that I haven't asked you?
Oh, that is such a great question. I think of it, but I do want to give sort of my 2 cents on being a busy mom and also a business owner. I have 3 kids. They're ages 5 and under, and thank goodness for daycare. They all go to daycare, and then my 5-year-old's gonna be starting kindergarten this year. But one of the perks I think of being an entrepreneur is that we have more control over our time. So I love that benefit. I'm there to pick up my kids when they're sick. And we know with little kids, you get those calls all the time, all the doctor's appointments, and I can take time off for just if I want to spend time with them and do special things. So I love that aspect of it. But I won't lie, it's very difficult running a business and running a busy household as well. And so my advice to women is number one, just really take care of yourself. Um, Watch your health, your physical. So sorry about the dog. Unfortunately, my office is like in an open concept living room, And so we'll work through that. And then, so I would say, take care of yourself, and delegate as much as you absolutely can as soon as you can. It's really going to save you. Yeah, it's really going to help.
Yeah, save your sanity. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the episode from Jen Drummond, but she's a woman who has 7 children. She scaled Everest and has done all kinds of incredible things. And that's her thing. Like if I'm happy and I'm a good person and I'm, being fulfilled, the whole family's better off. So don't feel like, oh, I'm being selfish. I really need to do X, Y, Z. No, you don't. If someone else does the dishes, that does not make you a bad mom, right? If someone else is doing something so that you can then be more present for your family and more loving and more engaged and really, you're not like half in, half out because you resent them because they're keeping you from living your best life. I mean, what kind of a mom is that? So yeah, absolutely. Take care of yourself first. That's fantastic advice.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I feel like, maybe my mom's generation, they didn't having these conversations. They weren't putting themselves first. It was like you take care of your family, you suck it up and you do your best. But I feel like with these maybe younger generations, this conversation around, yes, filling up your cup first, putting your oxygen mask first so that you can feel for your family. I think
Yeah,
that's just hitting everyone.
absolutely true. Excellent point. So, Lindsay, thank you so much for being with us today. I love all that you've shared. And I feel like I hope that this is going to encourage some people who have been thinking about real estate investing, who are interested in real estate investing, but who just haven't been ready to sort of jump off the cliff and do it. You don't have to jump off a cliff. You can do it little by little. You can keep your day job, or you can do something smart and actually make money while you're learning from somebody who already knows what they're doing and who can mentor you. And that's the other thing that you said a lot of is having coaches and mentors and people who are CFO, fractional CFOs, people who are working for you, who are professionals, that you don't have to do everything yourself in your business or in your momhood or, right? And yeah, excellent. Excellent. Um, Anything else we should say before we close for the episode?
I don't think so. I really enjoyed this time, and yeah, I hope it does encourage some people. And I'm always open to answer questions. And if anyone, I love when people want to pick my brain. I'm happy to help. So
Excellent. So we'll put this in the show notes, but what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they happen to have a distressed property, if they just want to chat, or if they, I don't know, have something else they want to share with you?
yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. It's Lindsay Sharma. I spell my name Lindsay. And I also have a website. It's lindsaysharmaproperties.com.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. Thank you, listener, for listening. Do you know somebody? No, I know you know somebody. I know you know of several people who have been kicking it around and thinking about getting involved in real estate investing, or who maybe just really need to be inspired today. Share this episode with them. They will be so grateful to you, and we will be grateful to you too. And in the meantime, have a fantastic day.